You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Today on our Motivation and Mindset Monday, we're going to talk about how you can change your life story. That it's now time in 2017 to change that story, to change the vision that you have for yourself. But more importantly, is to stop identifying with whoever you are right now, because that's the bigger issue right now. When we're talking about wherever we are in life, there's an obstacle, there's a stumbling block, there's something that's sticking that we can't move past this certain position in life. So wherever we are right now, it's because of the vision, the identity that we formed for ourselves. So for example, a lot of people right now, and again, I see this a lot on social media. So I see it a lot on Instagram, I see it a lot on Facebook. They're a part of a group, like they're a part of the Hashimoto thyroiditis sufferers group. They're a part of the Lyme disease sufferers group. They're part of the alopecia sufferers group. So what do? They identify with this particular type of person. It's who they are. It's what they've made their mind up to be. Now, with good reason, don't get me wrong. You're suffering from a particular disease. Or maybe you're someone that's 50, 60, 100 pounds overweight, and you can't seem to lose the weight no matter what you do. So there's a lot of blame that goes around. There's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of stress. You're blaming the coach, the online program, the diet plan, the book, the doctor, whoever it might be. That's totally understandable because remember, for almost a decade, I was the chronic fatigue syndrome sufferer. I was the Addison's disease sufferer. I was the inflammation autoimmune disease sufferer. I was the type 2 diabetes sufferer. I was the fibromyalgia sufferer. I was all of those things, the allergies, the asthma, all of those different types of things, the IBS, the candida, the SIBO, all of those things. It's who I was. It's who I identified with. If you came around me, we would most likely be talking about what I was suffering from, how I was feeling, what type of plan I was on. Because that's who I was. That was the focus of my life. But because of that, it prevented me from moving on to that next level, to changing my identity, because who I identified with was that sick kid. In my late teenage years and into my 20s and even mid-20s, I was that sick kid. I was that sick young adult who was dealing with a lot of health issues, who couldn't control a lot of the immune-based functions in his body. And it was my life. It's, again, who I saw myself as. But that was the bigger problem. Because until I started to see myself as someone else, until I started to envision myself as someone that was healthy, as someone that was strong, and as someone that didn't have to deal with all this brain fog and all these emotional and physical-based issues, there's no way I was ever going to make it to that level. I couldn't. Literally, when you look at physics, and when you look at quantum physics especially, your vibration changes depending on the state that you're in. They've studied this. There are brainwave-based studies. And so if I don't start to change my frequency, my vibration, I start to just stick in that one particular mode. I start to see myself as that only one type of basically victim. And again, if this is where you are right now, I understand it and I empathize with you. And I don't expect you to change tomorrow. But what I'd like to do right now is simply to open up your eyes and to let you see that you're not the person who's sick. You're not the person who's overweight. You're not the person that's struggling right now, whether it's relationship, finance, career, health, wellness, weight loss. None of those things. That's not who you are. It's your current situation. Yes, I'm not going to deny that. I can't deny when I was sick. Yes, I was sick. But what I had to do was not let that be my long-term vision for myself. I could understand it's where I currently was in life, but it was one step along a much longer journey. And that's where I am today. Right now, I remember that sick kid, but I can't identify with him anymore. I empathize with that person's struggle, but I'm no longer him. I don't even resemble the temperament, the emotional state, or the physical state of that person that was me a little over a decade ago. That is no longer me. I'm a different person. And the reason is the vision for myself. My life story changed along the way. And of course, it didn't happen overnight, right? It was a few dozen books, and then it was a couple hundred books, and then it was a couple thousand books, and it was speaking with mentors. It was going to conferences. If there were podcasts back then, I would have been listening to podcasts. If there was YouTube back then, I would have been listening to YouTube, but there wasn't. There was books. And that's kind of what I'm stuck on today, is because that's what I enjoy. It's because it pulled me out of despair, essentially. And when I had enough money, I started to invest it in supplements and in books, like courses, and in mentors and doctors, of course. But in the beginning, what I could afford were books, and that's what I did. And that's just how I continued on that path. What I want to tell you today, though, is this goes well beyond any particular struggle that you're dealing with. I see too many people today that they're paleo, that they're Whole30, that they are keto, that they're CrossFit, that they're spinning, that they're whatever their thing might be. And they're so rigid that they don't allow themselves to have any flexibility in life. What that does is it prevents them a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time, from becoming more well-balanced. And remember, Deepak Chopra said this, and I really, really enjoyed this on one of his, back then it was CDs, on one of his CDs, he said this, that he said, the key to longevity is flexibility. That means this. When you are more flexible in life, he didn't mean literally physically flexible. He meant from a theoretical level. And that means you're able to adapt better. They've found that the healthiest people are able to adapt. You're able to adapt to your environment, to your social settings, to noise, to chemicals, like any of those things. Like it just doesn't throw you off. And I didn't understand at the time. I didn't understand it for years. And that's why I hold on to all my books, because I review them. I review them every couple months. Of course, not all of them. I review them every couple months, and because what I do is when I read them with a fresh set of eyes, and by what I mean by that is this, is that when I look at the words on the page, I now have a couple more years of knowledge and experience. And that's why that helps. And that's why every year you have to be gentle with yourself, because you're growing as an individual. But what we can do now is as we learn more, we understand more, and we can then better adapt to those situations because we've been there before. But remember, if you get stuck in paleo, then you can say, oh, well, I can't eat oatmeal. Just oatmeal's out of the question. I don't care that there are studies showing that it helps with cholesterol, it helps with satiation, helps with the ectomorph body types, helps with blood pressure, good for starch, good for that type of fiber, but I can't eat that because I'm paleo. So paleo, I can have coconut flour cupcakes. That's okay because I'm paleo, but I can't have oatmeal. To me, that's insane, because paleo is not cupcakes, and paleo is not meat 3 times a day. That's not real paleo. We've created these figments of our imagination to match up with our ideologies. And we have to be really careful with ideologies. We have to be really careful with dogmas. And that's why I believe that dogmas are dangerous. A dogma as a life's philosophy is okay. I do agree with that, and I do believe with that, because your life's philosophy should be open-ended so that you keep your mind open to far more possibility and flexibility than we are at currently right now. And that dogma should be able to change. But an overall dogma might be, I want to serve others in life. I want to be kind to others. I want to be a good person. I want to help others as much as I can. I know that I'm not perfect and will never be perfect, but I'm going to do my best. I'm going to struggle, but I'm going to do my best. That's okay as a dogma because it encompasses an overall philosophy of trying to be a good person, of course. But a dogma meaning I can't eat any legumes, beans, lentils, because I don't do that as part of my nutritional-based routine. Now, that might be perfectly healthy for you. Again, I have lectin-sensitive people who can't have beans. And again, I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner as well. But that doesn't mean I can use split mung beans. It doesn't mean I can use lentils, not with everyone. Even if they're sprouted, even if they're soaked. Keep in mind, I've been studying this a long time. I know the intricacies, but I also know, and I've been around long enough, that it still doesn't work for every person. For example, I'll be talking this week about a low-carb diet and how it can be great for some people in terms of weight loss, but a lot of other people, it lowers their thyroid and increases gut dysfunction. I'll be talking about that on Wednesday. I do hope you tune in for that show. So all of the people, though, who promote low-carb, and that's their dogma, that's who they are, that's their story. It's their business a lot of times. Then what happens is they have to keep promoting that as the end-all, be-all, the panacea, even if we know it doesn't work for all people. And that's why my position, again, I don't do this for business. I do this podcast to do my best to give back because it was a promise I made many years ago as a sick kid that if I ever figure this out, if I could ever figure it out, I would share it with the world. It took me a long time to be able to do that. Yes, I figured it out many years ago, but it took me a long time to really feel comfortable with getting this message out to people because I had to grow as an individual. I had to improve my ability to translate the text that I've read into an actual knowledge base and a form of medicine. That's the whole reason. I'm probably the biggest skeptic there is. People ask me why did you study all over the world? You must have had a lot of money to be able to do that. That's not the case. I spent my own money because I'm a skeptic and I wanted to improve my own health still. And I also wanted to then be able to teach people all over the world what really works. And so that's what I did. That's why I studied all over the world. I kept my mind open to all possibilities. And I simply said, which form of medicine really holds the answer? Is it traditional Chinese medicine? Is it Ayurvedic medicine? Is it Taoist medicine? Is it yoga? Is it just breathing? Is it meditation? Is it just nutrition? And if so, what type of nutrition? Is it low carb? Is it paleo? Is it high protein? Is it high fat? What is it? What's the answer? And again, I was skeptical. Do people need nutritional supplements? Yes or no? I studied orthomolecular medicine. I looked at the research. I said, can we do this through food alone? Here's the thing. And again, it's a terrible business model, is that there is no one program for each person. And that's why it's a terrible business model, is because I have nothing to promote to you. I have this. You can lab test to see who you are and where you are currently today. Again, it goes back to your identity. Who you are today is great. That is your phenotype. Who you will become, that will change as well. You will get healthier. You will lose the weight. The only way you won't is if you give up. I mean, that's the bottom line. And you can give up. I gave up many times. It lasted sometimes for days, sometimes for weeks, and in my worst time, it lasted for a couple months. And those were pretty dark times. Those were bad times. They really were. But each time, eventually, I refused to give up. I refused for this to be my identity. There was this cognitive dissonance between what I wanted for myself, what I eventually envisioned for myself, even though I had no idea how I would get there, and who I was at that point when I wasn't feeling well. So remember, no matter where you are in life, it's going to change. Life is not static, and I can tell you that for sure. So if you're struggling right now, here's the thing. No matter what, your life's going to be different a year from now. It's going to be different with every change of the season. Here's the thing. A lot of people don't understand this, is that we suffer more from different illnesses, different susceptibilities based on literally the weather, meaning that during the winter time, especially if you live in New England, you're going to be more prone to mucus-based congestion. Winter and spring, okay? Kapha, pitta body types especially. And again, that goes into body types. You're going to produce more mucus. Depending on the diet, if you eat a lot of dairy, most people are producing to more and more mucus, or susceptible to producing more mucus if they eat more dairy. That's just the way it is. If you don't believe it and you have all sorts of stuffy nose and chest congestion, or your kids get a lot of ear, nose, and throat issues, take them off dairy. Just take them off. Use a coconut milk or almond milk instead. Switch them off. It changes people's lives. If I was given that information, it would have changed my life back when I was a kid, back when I was a teenager. My parents didn't know, so they can't be at fault. And no one's at fault until you finally find out this information. Okay, but getting back to what I'm talking about today. I suffered for many years. I refused to give up. It's all I had going for me. I continued to read books. I continued to experiment. What that did, though, was that it exposed me to a lot of different thought processes. And then I'm a big admirer of Bruce Lee from the fact that what he did was he said, I want to develop the very best system of martial arts in the world. And the only way I can do that is to study everything. And then what I'm going to do from there is take the best of all those martial arts and combine it into one, which he called Jeet Kune Do. And what he did was he created a form of martial arts that was self-defense based that he could hopefully end the fight within basically 3 moves. That was it. And it was so streamlined, such a beautiful form of martial arts, not to hurt anyone, self-defense based, that it grew in popularity. But also he was fluid in it. He was a master in it because he knew the different philosophies before that. And he had already assimilated. He had done the work. He grew as an individual. He grew as a martial arts practitioner and then an expert. It's what I've kind of modeled my medical practice around. There is no same thing as the practice that I do right now. It doesn't mean it's the best. I'm not saying that at all. All I'm saying that what I did was this. I looked at every different form of medicine in the world. I found out they're all fantastic. Every single one of them, whether it's Reiki, whether it's yoga, whether it's Ayurveda, whether it's orthomolecular, whether it's functional medicine, naturopathic medicine, any of those, they're all fantastic, but they are not the end all be all. And that's why your paleo diet, your keto, your low carb, your whatever it might be is not the end all either. It's not. No one system of medicine can have all the answers. No one diet can as well. That's why leave yourself open to possibilities. It's all I'm trying to get across. You can love your diet. You can love where you are right now, and that's great. And if you're doing great, then keep doing it. But just keep yourself open that it may not work for you 6 months from now. It might not work for you a year from now, and that's because you're not static. So what I want you to do right now is just start to begin the process of opening up your mind, leaving yourself open to possibilities. I know paleo says that you shouldn't do grains because of phytic acid and all sorts of other things, but keep your mind open to that. Start to do additional research. How much magnesium is blocked by phytic acid? Check that out. Usually you'll find it's about 20 to 30%. Interesting. So you're saying 70% of the magnesium gets in, even after taking grains? I thought it just all got completely blocked. That's not the case at all. Again, do your research. Question everything. A true practitioner will allow you, or a true book or whatever it might be, will allow you to question it with an open mind. There are a lot of people who question things and just shoot it down. But you have to keep that open mind. You have to be open to possibility. It is this openness to possibility, the willingness to change your story, that I believe is the key to happiness. Because I've mentioned before, happiness is never achieving that end product. Happiness is the growth. It really is. Think about it in your own life. Think about it, really. When are your happiest times? A lot of them, they're striving for something, doing what you get to, love, what you love to do. I mean, really, I get to do what I love to do. It's bringing me joy to do this podcast. It is to write my books. It is to work with people. All of those things are things that I enjoy. And what I've tried to do is figure out, how do I not have an end product there? Again, I have many different goals, but I understand when I achieve that goal, good. I will be grateful for it. I will enjoy it, but then I will move on to the next one. The same for you. Your goal right now might be to recover from that autoimmune-based issue. It might be to lose those 30, 40, 50 plus pounds. And that's fantastic. But when you achieve that, you're still living with you. So that means this. You'll achieve that goal by keeping an open mind, by being willing to change your identity, by not identifying any longer with the sick person, with the overweight person. Start to see yourself as you want to be. And when you do that, I really believe it's just keeping your mind open. It's being like a child. I have 2 young girls and I see them just open to all possibilities. And when I always try never to block that end of possibilities, I try to foster that growth, allow them to think and believe that they can be and achieve anything they want, because it's only as adults that we're told that we can't do something or we can't recover from something. If you're going to a doctor right now and they tell you you can't overcome something, switch doctors. Bottom line. And if you ever work with me or you do any of my things and I say that you can't achieve something, stop working with me. That's the bottom line. You need to work with someone that's going to foster that thought process, that growth-based potential for who you're going to become. Because remember, who you're going to become is always changing. You just need to have a path. And right now, I talk about it before. Please listen to previous Motivation and Mindset Mondays, because you need to set that goal. Once you have that goal, again, whether it's to become well, to meet that right person, to get that career, to lose the weight, whatever it is, focus on that goal. Don't focus on where you're at right now. You already know you're sick. You already know you're overweight. You already know that you're happy. Whatever it is, focus on the new thing. Focus on that goal. You will get more of that. You will find then the mentors, the articles, the podcast, the programs, the whatever it is that leads you then towards that goal, because that's what you're focused on. You focus on being sick. You focus on being overweight. You focus on not having anyone in your life that you want. You're going to get more of that because it's what your mind's focused on. This isn't hocus pocus. This is literally psychology. If you focus on something, you're going to look for opportunities to move in that direction. Plain and simple. Okay. What I want you to do right now, how I'm going to close this, is I simply want you to have the mindset that you can change your life story at any moment that you want. Never once will I say it's easy. And it wasn't easy for myself either. And it wasn't a straight line. But it's always worth it in the end. That's all I want to say is I want you to understand whoever you are right now can change. Whatever your life story is right now can change. Your identity can change. You don't have to live in the same person's body and mind that you're in right now. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into another Cabral Concept. And as always, if this show could help anyone else, please do feel free to share it with them.
Did you know that the body really only becomes sick or imbalanced in only two ways? Over time, you become deficient in vital nutrients, and you also accumulate toxins internally and from the environment. As those nutrients diminish and you increase your total toxic load, your body then begins to show the first signs of dis-ease. It's actually quite predictable, and the good news is that if we know how you began to fill up that proverbial rain barrel, we also know how to empty it to begin the healing process. I was fortunate enough to learn this ancient healing process from my mentor after suffering from debilitating diseases for close to a decade. It was only when I began to implement these techniques did I finally overcome my illnesses and go on to live a life of energy and vitality that I now enjoy. I'd like to share with you now what I discovered after traveling all over the world and how to combine the best of ancient healing wisdom with state-of-the-art science. Allow me to teach you exactly how I've been able to help over 250,000 people to empty their rain barrel and begin to transform their body and lives into what they've always hoped they could be. To get your copy of the international bestseller, The Rain Barrel Effect, simply go to stephencabral.com/rainbarrel.